Hello, my name is Kate Wexell, and I wanted to talk to you guys about Minerva University. So there have been a lot of videos that have been created out here on YouTube in the past few years talking about this new university, and people don't really seem to know a lot about it. I first want to just say, as a disclaimer, I am not an employee of Minerva, I am not a student there, so let me explain sort of why I'm making this video and what expertise do I have to even speak about the university in general. Well, Minerva University, it is an American private university that was founded in 2012 by this guy named Ben Nelson. He had this idea about how he wanted to change the American university system. So instead of us glamorizing the Ivy Leagues that really aren't teaching super effective learning, he wanted to use active learning and the science of learning to create a completely new curriculum that was designed to rival some of these top and elite schools in the United States. So how does this university actually function? Well, it is a startup. It's only 12 years old and it's based in San Francisco. So I ended up going through the transfer admissions process in 2023, and Minerva was one of those places that I ended up applying to. I was accepted, and at the end of this video, I'm going to talk about why I didn't ultimately end up choosing it. However, I then decided in August of 2023 to move in with the students at Minerva in their dorms. So even though I wasn't a student there, I was still hanging out with all of the students. I was still participating in some of their events. I got to see what their curriculum looks like from the outside. And I think that this is really important because a lot of the videos out there are created by students who are coming here internationally, which is the majority of students at Minerva University. And so they tend to end up glamorizing some of the American universities. So I wanted to provide that perspective of somebody who has gone to a very traditional American university, who is an American myself, and I have that authority to sort of compare the two systems to see, all right, what are their genuine concerns? What are the things that are truly great about Minerva? And then what are the things that could maybe be improved on? All right, so let's get into it. I'm going to just go through really quickly their curriculum, sort of their housing situation, the financial aid, and then the student body for anybody who's interested in potentially applying to Minerva. And I would also like to say, I completely believe that Minerva University is a fantastic school, and I would highly urge anybody who is interested by the end of this video to apply. So what actually makes Minerva unique as this new startup university? So the thing with the active learning science is their curriculum was designed by a man named Stephen Coslin. He led different behavioral science research institutes at Harvard and Stanford. So the concept behind Minerva is that instead of you going into college with this major already in mind, it's more about self-discovery. And you're doing that in a global setting. So whenever I came to Minerva's dorms, their university is like 99% international students. So I was actually, I think for a while, the only American in our entire dorm building. So you get to learn all of these different languages, you get to see people from completely different cultures, and then the appeal of Minerva University is that over your 8 semesters in college, you end up living in 7 different countries. So the first year is spent in San Francisco, and then after that, each semester you're traveling to a different country, and I believe that it's a total of 5 continents. All right, so now that we have that out of the way, their curriculum then within that is all online. So they have a learning management system, and it is called Forum. So that means that their professors can be located anywhere, and they can get in people from Harvard, Stanford, all of the top schools to be teaching these courses to students. And then it doesn't matter where in the world the students are located, they can all still take these classes. And so what I found really interesting, because I can't speak as much about later years, I can only speak about the first year at Minerva. So instead of having general educational requirements like other universities in the United States, they end up having just these 4 core classes that everybody takes. So it is kind of like general education, except for you don't have like this biology class and this English class. It is one communications course, one course that talks about complex systems, so essentially how the world is all interconnected, and then they have a coding class and a logic class. And then the fantastic thing about this is that because of active learning science, I know, like, I had to sit through a bunch of massive lectures. I had classes that had 300 people in them. Even schools like UC Berkeley that here, they're like, oh yay, all the folks at UC Berkeley, we love them, right? Like, I hear from my friends that are over at UC Berkeley that they have classes that are even bigger than that, and then they have to compete still to get into these classes. At Minerva, all the classes are 20 people or less. And then the teachers, they do not give you a lecture. Instead, you're given some readings, maybe some activities to do out in the community beforehand, and then the entire class is just discussing things with your classmates. And then similarly, all of their projects are their assignments. They have no exams, no finals that they have to study for, but instead, the fascinating thing is because you don't have a traditional campus, because you're in all of these different countries, their projects are all about applying their learning in their community. So I know at my university, we have a service learning department that has been specifically trying to work on incorporating this more into our curriculums. It's been shown that if you actually apply your learning to real things in the world, that it ends up being more effective. So that's what I really, really love about Minerva. And then also with the current job market, it's teaching you all of those core and essential skills. Like, how do you actually identify how things fit together and work together? How can you code, which is a huge, huge skill that we need now. I know that they've had things with AI. They have to write press releases and learn sort of about how to be succinct with their writing. So that part of their curriculum is fantastic. Parts of their curriculum that I'm maybe not as much of a fan of, or I guess in theory, I'm definitely a fan of them, but in reality, it just ends up with the students having way too many things that they have to do and being incredibly, incredibly stressed, or that on top of those 4 courses, what ends up happening is they have like an internship that they're placed in with a group. So that's been kind of cool for some groups. Some of them have worked with companies like Adobe or Google, and so the theory is that you end up with at least 4 internships that have been created for you through the university by the end of your studies, which is great because of visa restrictions as well. And then they also have required volunteering. They also have required events where they have to go to different places in the city to try to explore. But what I've seen this do in practice is that you already have your classes that are spread out throughout the day, and because it's so small, you can't necessarily choose like, oh, I want all of my classes to be in the morning like you could at a regular university and then have the afternoon to do your assignments. It's kind of just, oh, I'm in class for 2 hours, now I have an hour to maybe get something done. Now I'm in class for 2 hours again. Now I have an hour break, and now I have to be somewhere else to volunteer. So it ends up just being a lot. It would be really nice if Minerva could find a way to incorporate that better into the curriculum that they already have, instead of it being kind of like mandatory volunteering and mandatory club involvement. But other than that, their curriculum is phenomenal, and I think that sometimes the students kind of take that for granted. Alright, so now let's talk about the housing and dining. Once again, I can't speak for the other countries, I can only speak for San Francisco. So I lived at their location that is on Turk Street in San Francisco. What Minerva has done is they've ended up renting out some old hotels. So the rooms are set up like dorm rooms. You usually have about 3 or 4 people of your same gender in the room, and then you just share the bathroom with them. So there's no like floor-wide bathrooms in either of the buildings. In San Francisco, they currently have 2 dorm buildings. So there's one on Turk Street in San Francisco, and then there's one on California Street. So it's kind of nice because you're really close to downtown in both locations. A lot of people are able to get gym memberships at the YMCA. I will clarify though, what also makes Minerva unique is just that they don't have a campus. So those dorm buildings, those are the only buildings from Minerva. And then the idea is that you sort of incorporate yourself into the city that you're in. So that means with dining, there is no dining plan, which I kind of personally like because since you're in these big cities, you're really close to a grocery store anyway. And from my experience being at a traditional university, they end up actually overcharging you for food, and you're not even able to choose the quality of the food or how healthy the food is for you. At Minerva, you can definitely choose that yourself. They have these massive, beautiful industrial kitchens in the basements of the dorms because they did used to be hotels. So you can kind of just walk down the street to Safeway, you can walk down the street to Trader Joe's, you can go shopping with your friends. However, I know that the students have been kind of upset with this because they don't necessarily have time to be cooking between all of their classes. So once again, it would help if the classes were a little bit more spread out to give people that time to work on some of those things. But then the other thing is that you do have to get your own gym membership. There is no like campus gym. There is no like office for each individual thing like financial aid and study abroad and all of those things that you would normally have at a university. So that means that you do have to find your own places to go to study, to work. You have to go to the public libraries. I personally felt trapped in a campus bubble when I was at my university and not living in San Francisco, so I know that I liked this. A lot of the students really like visiting Stanford and UC Berkeley though, because they do like that comfort of being surrounded by all of the students. And I will say, the one thing with that is that it does get kind of alienating being in the big city and you're pretty much the only university students that are there. So it is kind of nice to go to some of those places where you're surrounded by people your own age. And then the other thing that I would say about housing is, like, once again, it's pretty standard dorms, but the location on Turk Street, it is in a very, very dangerous location. I'm not sure why Minerva University still has this location here. As far as I'm aware, this is the only dangerous location that they have in any of their rotation cities, so it should be a lot safer later on. But the location on Turk Street is located in an area of San Francisco known as the Tenderloin. So anybody who's a local here knows that that is where all of the drug addiction, all of the homeless problems, all of the gangs are. And other than that, San Francisco is really quite safe, and it's a very, very beautiful place with a lot to do. It's just all of the bad things that you think of as occurring in a large city, it's all condensed into these handful of blocks. And so you're just sort of right on the outskirts of them. So I know most students didn't really have a problem with that. However, a couple of us did have bad things happen to us as a result of being there. So you definitely need to bring your pepper spray, and I would highly advise for all of the administrators at Minerva to maybe reconsider the location of that dorm and try to find a different building. All right, so now let's talk about financial aid. This ended up being the reason why I didn't attend Minerva, was because I had already attended a year of traditional university and had used up my scholarship money on that. So Minerva, because it does have such a specific structure, you have to attend for all 4 years. So even if you transfer from another university, like, you basically have to restart. So there are some students there that are like 21, 25, 28 who transferred in from other places, but everybody has to start at the beginning. So for me, my financial aid was not enough to justify the amount that I would still be spending to sort of restart the program. Otherwise, I 100% would have signed up to attend Minerva University. So just putting that out there. So how the financial aid works is, because it's a private university, they're able to be incredibly, incredibly generous, especially with their international students. So I know a lot of the countries that people were coming from, their currencies are very, very deflated. However, Minerva was able to really, really help them out. They didn't think that Minerva was helping them out, but as an American, when they would tell me that they were paying like $3,000 in total for their degree, I was like, yeah, guys, you couldn't have gotten that literally anywhere else. So I know for myself, I had turned in the FAFSA, I got my estimated financial contribution for my family, and then Minerva actually gave me about $20,000 or $30,000 more than every single other private university that I had applied to. So that was incredible. If it hadn't been for the year that I had already spent at a traditional university, it would have actually been the same price as me attending a state school in the US with significant scholarships. So I'm just putting that out there. The financial aid is fantastic. They do have required work study if you're receiving financial aid. However, that's true of basically any university. Like, you will have to do some work. And the good part is they try to match you up with internships in the university that are actually relevant to your interests. All right, so now let's talk about probably the most important part, which is the student body and then the admissions process. So the students at Minerva, that was really why I came to go live with them, was because you end up with people from all sorts of other countries. As I said, it was like 99% international students. There were about 200 students in this year's class, split up between the 2 dorm buildings in San Francisco. And so I think there were 2 Americans, I want to say. So actually 99%. And then the cool thing about the admissions process is that it's not all based on how prestigious are the things that you have done. It's more just based on, did you follow your passions? Can you say, like, I have genuinely put my effort into the things that I'm doing? Have I tried to succeed at things? The people at Minerva are very, very entrepreneurial. So you'll have people going to networking events constantly, trying to build startups, even though it's not actually legal for them to do that in the US at the current moment. You'll have people who have already written and published multiple books. You'll have people who have built satellites for governments. You'll have people who are doing so many amazing things all at once. There was one kid that he told me that he had built a hospital in his country at age 15, but then he couldn't do anything with it until he turned 18 just because he legally couldn't sign the paperwork. So these are the people that they discarded prestige, because otherwise they could have all gotten into Ivy League universities, right? And instead, they're focusing on this university for the skills and experiences that they'll acquire. So just think about the kind of person who has to be there and be willing to do that. So these are the people who have been trying to achieve things since they were little and have really, really big, great plans for everybody else, regardless of what society thinks of them. So I have met the most phenomenal people at this university. I have friends who are at elite universities in the US, but like honestly, the students at Minerva have been incredible. And then they're all very, very close. There are a couple of issues that I do see with just how small their student body is, and that means it's really hard to date. Any gossip gets around super, super fast. People are like, okay, do I even try to date because we're moving in a couple months? Or like, what do I even do? Overall, people seem to be very kind to each other. One of the tests in the admissions process is a test of emotional intelligence. So you actually have to write an essay about how you would deal with roommate conflicts and do different things like that. So they're able to assess like, all right, these people are not just a bunch of snobs. These are people who could actually genuinely interact with our community. And they do have a lot of bonding events. The students have said that they probably have too many, which is a little bit true. But the university itself will host like feasts and little activities to go around the city and things like that. So everybody is very, very close, and they all work on different projects together for their businesses. And then the other cool thing is that through the admissions process, you have to take an IQ test. So everybody around you is incredibly, incredibly smart. It's not based on the SAT or the ACT or A-levels or whichever exam you're thinking of. It's all based on like genuinely how smart are you based on IQ tests, which not that those are a perfect measure, but I personally think that it's better than seeing, oh, can I test well on this standardized 3 or 4 hour long exam that's just about how well did my high school prepare me with very, very specific knowledge, right? So, all right, this is everything that I have to say about Minerva University at the current moment. If you have any questions about Minerva, then I would be happy to answer them or try to refer you to an actual student there. But yeah, the only reason that I didn't choose Minerva was just because I would have had to start over all of my progress and it would have cost more money than it was worth. But I definitely do not regret my decision to move to San Francisco and end up living with the students there. All right, well, thank you. Please like this video and subscribe.